The sound of glass shattering against the garage wall echoes in the darkness. Matteo stands there, knuckles bleeding, staring at the hole he's punched through his perfect suburban life. 3 hours ago, doctor. Peterson used words that opened an abyss beneath his feet. Brain tumor. We need to operate immediately. His 5-year-old son Luca is sleeping upstairs, dreaming whatever 5-year-olds dream when their world is still whole. Tomorrow Matteo will have to explain why daddy has bandages on his hands, why mommy's eyes are red, why everything is about to change. You know that moment, don't you? When life cracks, you open like an egg. When the carefully constructed shell of your existence suddenly has a gaping wound. When you discover that all your plans, all your securities, all your illusions of control were made of tissue paper. But here's what Matteo doesn't know yet. What none of us know in the moment of breaking. Sometimes it's through the cracks that the light gets in. 3 weeks later, Matteo sits in the hospital cafeteria watching people, really watching them for the first time in his adult life. The mother in the corner, stirring her coffee in endless circles. Her daughter's surgery started 4 hours ago. Matteo knows because he's been counting too. The elderly man by the window holding his wife's purse while she's in radiology. His hands shake not from age but from fear. The teenage boy slouched against the wall, earbuds in, but his music can't drown out the reality that his little brother might not come home. Before Luca's diagnosis, Matteo would have seen furniture, people-shaped objects occupying space in his busy day. Now he sees universes, entire galaxies of pain and hope and love spinning in each face. The crack in his heart has become a window. There's a line in Leonard Cohen's song that haunts me. There is a crack in everything. That's how the light gets in. But what if it's more than that? What if the cracks don't just let light in? What if they let us see out? Into places we were too whole, too defended, too perfectly intact to perceive before. When Jesus rose from the dead, he could have returned with a perfect body, unmarked, unscarred, a divine do-over that erased every trace of Friday's violence. Instead, he kept his wounds. "Put your finger here," he told Thomas. "See my hands. Reach out your hand and put it into my side." The wounds weren't flaws to be hidden. They were doorways to be entered. Dr. Sarah Kim understood this in ways she never wanted to learn. For 15 years, she built her practice on professional competence. Clean diagnosis, measured responses, the careful distance that medical training teaches you to maintain between yourself and other people's pain. Then her 16-year-old daughter Emma died by suicide, and Sarah's world imploded. When she finally returned to her therapy practice 6 months later, something had changed. She couldn't pretend anymore to have answers she didn't possess. Couldn't offer hope from a place of professional detachment. But what she'd lost in clinical certainty, she'd gained in something more precious: the ability to sit with people in their darkest places without trying to fix them, without needing to make the pain smaller or more manageable. Before Emma died, Sarah reflects, "I was a good therapist. I knew techniques, I asked proper questions, but after Emma died, I became a wounded healer. And wounded healers see things that competent professionals miss. Her patients noticed immediately. There was a depth to her presence now, a quality of understanding that came not from textbooks, but from walking through her own valley of shadows. The crack in her heart had taught her to recognize the shape of other people's breaking. Matteo's transformation didn't happen overnight. The surgery was successful. Doctor. Peterson's skilled hands removed every trace of the tumor that had threatened to steal his son's future. But the recovery was long, difficult, full of setbacks and small victories that taught Matteo to celebrate things he'd never noticed before. Luca's first laugh after weeks of silence. The way afternoon light caught in his son's eyes during a story. The sacred ordinariness of a 5-year-old asking for water at midnight. I used to live my life like I was checking items off a list. Matteo tells me months later. Career goals, financial targets, vacation plans. Everything measured, everything managed. But when Luca got sick, the list became meaningless. And for the first time, I started seeing life instead of just managing it. 6 months after the surgery, Matteo makes a choice that surprises everyone, including himself. He starts volunteering in the pediatric ward where Luca was treated. Not because he's over his trauma, but because that trauma has cracked him open in ways that make him useful to other parents walking through their own dark valleys. He can spot the terror in a father's eyes from across the room. He knows exactly what to say to a mother who hasn't slept in 3 days. He can offer presents to families in crisis because he's learned the geography of that particular wilderness. I don't know why we had to go through that, he tells his wife one evening, but I know this. I see people differently now. I see pain I would have missed before. And somehow that seeing feels like a gift. The Japanese have an art form called kintsugi. When pottery breaks, instead of throwing it away or trying to hide the damage, they repair it with gold. The golden lines don't disguise the breakage, they highlight it. They say this bowl has a story, it has been broken and made beautiful precisely because of its breaking, not in spite of it. In kintsugi, the repair becomes more beautiful than the original. The cracks become the most precious part. This is the scandal of resurrection. God doesn't just heal our wounds, He makes them luminous. Not because breaking is good. Jesus wept at Lazarus' tomb. He grieved human suffering even though He knew resurrection was coming. But because something in the nature of divine love refuses to waste our pain, refuses to let our breaking be merely destructive. In God's hands, our cracks become windows, our wounds become doorways, our breaking becomes a strange and terrible beauty that can only be made from fragments. Tonight, maybe you're sitting in your own garage staring at your own broken glass. Maybe life has cracked you open in ways you never imagined possible. The voices around you might be saying, get over it, move on, put yourself back together, become whole again. But what if wholeness isn't the goal? What if the goal is transparency? What if God isn't trying to make you unbreakable, but radiant? What if the very thing that has wounded you most deeply is becoming the place where light can finally enter? And more importantly, where light can finally shine through you to touch places in other people's darkness that intact hearts could never reach. The crack in everything, that's not the problem. That's how the light gets in and how it gets out. In the silence that follows, listen. Your broken places are speaking a language that only other broken hearts can fully understand. And somewhere, someone is learning to see by the light coming through your cracks.